I asked you while you were up there, we know that Townsville's in the seat of Herbert, one of the most marginal seats in the country. It had a Labor incumbent MP at the last election, but she suffered an 8% swing against her. The issue of Adani was very live in the seat of Herbert. I asked you while you were up there to get around and talk to some people on the street and just get their sense of where Labor is, where the government is, where politics is actually, 6 months on from the election. What did you find out?
Well, I found that people were pretty sick of talking about politics. I had a lot of people saying, oh, bloody hell, why are you asking me about the election? This was months ago now. But they certainly were happy to talk about it. And you're absolutely right. We are at the coalface in every sense of the term. This is coal country. When you go into the city, there's the big Adani sign on the major building right in the street. And when we were talking to people, they were frustrated that Labor didn't have a set opinion on Adani, that they weren't for or against it strongly, and they felt like it was real lifeblood of the town. And we also found that a lot of the people here just weren't big fans of Bill Shorten. Who did you vote for?
Liberal.
Why?
I didn't like Shorten.
Is that it?
Yep. Didn't like the look of him.
How did you vote at the last election?
I voted independent because I can't stand either of the leaders of the main parties. And there's not many people to vote for, to be honest.
Is there anything Labor could do that would make you want to vote for them? Any policies they could change?
I don't like their financial policies. I've been a financial planner for 20 years and I hate their fiscal policies. They're no longer representing the working men, as far as I can see. I actually think they've lost their way quite considerably.
Labor's lost the way. They don't look after the workers.
And Labor says that their policy towards coal might have cost them votes. Do you think that's true?
I think that's what lost them, because they're not doing anything for workers.
And why did Labor lose the election? Come on.
Because they didn't have anybody good enough to go in there. That's why. They didn't have anybody good enough to vote for. They're going to have to pick the game up from now on, between here and now, if they want to get back in there, because they're buggered. I voted Labor all my life.
And this is the first time you didn't?
No, it's the second time I didn't.
Wow. So why don't you think they have anyone good enough? What do they need to do better?
They have got no idea what they're doing, where they're going or how to do it. And they've got nobody in there with legs enough or anybody in there with enough gumption to do anything.
Have you ever voted Labor before?
I have, yeah. I voted during the Bob Hawke, Paul Keating era, but they ceased to represent the working people, especially in this town.
Do you think their attitude towards coal specifically cost them votes?
Yes, definitely in this town. We were in the middle of a major downturn with employment, and to have people standing on the street saying, you know, we don't want your coal money, was a major thing in this town.
And what did you think of Bill Shorten?
Didn't like Bill Shorten. Just found him just a bit creepy, insincere, just uncomfortable with people.
Have you ever voted Labor?
Yes.
And so you didn't vote Labor this time?
Not this time, no. I've been a Labor voter all my life, but it was just, I just didn't like the leadership. It was weak.
Was it a lot to do with Bill Shorten?
I think so, for me, yes.
Why?
I think he tried to run the government like he was running the unions. In my opinion, he was a weak leader. There was a lot of backchat in the background and backstabbing for him, and it was just the last election for them. I think they were so convinced they was going to win. It was just a bad campaign.
I tell you what, Anneliese, it's fascinating there, you know, breadth of people. They don't look to be sort of monochrome or all of the one type, but a lot of that commentary picked up issues like they no longer represent working people. They weren't about jobs. They didn't care about this community. A couple of them even referenced the phrase, you know, Labor has lost its way. Now, if you talk to some people, particularly on the right of the Labor Party, and they won't tell you this on camera, but they'll say this to you privately, you know, Labor's in a death spiral, I suppose. The right would think that they, or hope that they could win it, but there's a fight between the inner city Green type and the old Labor working class vote, the old Labor of tradition and history, and that's what will determine, I think, whether Labor will lift its primary vote up from the 30s back into election winning 40% numbers, which it hasn't been in a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. You're exactly right. That phrase just kept coming up about how they've lost their way. And I was surprised because I was trying to think who's branded that. And it seems like it really is just something that's coming from people. We were just walking around the CBD grabbing everyone we saw. So there was no rhyme or reason to who we were picking. But people certainly were vocal when we did start chatting to them. And it seems like there really is that hang up here. One of the things that a lot of people were saying to us off camera was that the Greens were very busy here in Townsville, that they had a very strong presence, and it's a small town. It's not hard to get people's attention here, and so it seems like that's exactly the issue that Labor has at the moment. You're right that they have the inner city appeal and then the Queensland appeal that they're trying to fight between. But the thing is, this is a division that exists within the Liberal Party as well. They're just a lot more cohesive about putting it forward. You don't see Melbourne MPs holding up lumps of coal either, or Victorian MPs rather, from the Liberal Party, but it's something where they have focused on that jobs message, and that's really what Labor didn't do.